Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy. Here we share new confessions every day.
They said I lacked loyalty. After 10 years. 10 goddamn years. I remember reading those words in the HR email, my fingers trembling just enough to make the mouse jitter across the screen. Calder and Knox requires individuals who prioritize company goals with unwavering dedication. Unwavering dedication. They sent that to me 3 days after I buried my mother. Not a phone call. Not even a hallway conversation. Just a cold, detached email at 8:12 a.m., right after I'd sat down with a cup of peppermint tea I couldn't even taste. But let me back up. My name is Evelyn Parrish, and for most of my life, I've been the woman who keeps everything together. I'm not loud. I don't take up space when I walk into a room. I'm not the kind to slam doors or throw drinks in faces or shout during meetings. But when I say something, people listen. Because I don't speak unless I've thought it through. I move with quiet precision. And over the years, I built my entire professional identity around being the calm in the storm, the one who could be trusted when shit hit the fan. I wasn't always like that. I used to be fiery, a little reckless even. But when you grow up with a single mother who worked double shifts and cried in the laundry room so you wouldn't see her break down, you learn to become useful. You learn to fix, to absorb pain and smooth it out before it spills onto anyone else. That's who my mother Delilah was. She never asked for help, never took a vacation, but she always showed up for me. So when her health started failing last fall, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask for sympathy or special treatment. I just rearranged my life and made it work. Monday through Friday, I was in Portland, running strategy calls, closing six-figure retainers, mentoring new hires who barely knew how to log into Salesforce. Weekends? I drove 2.5 hours south to Eugene and sat by her hospice bed, reading to her, brushing her hair, holding her hand when the pain came in waves that made her bite her lip until it bled. I didn't tell anyone at work. Not because I was hiding, but because in places like Calder and Knox, vulnerability is like blood in shark-infested water. The second they smell it, they circle. Still, I kept performing. No missed deadlines. No fumbled presentations. In December, I personally saved the Sequoia Thermal account after the junior team botched their Q4 projections. That one brought in over $900,000 in renewal revenue. Barrett even sent me a one-line Slack. Nice catch. You salvaged that one. No emoji. Just that. So when the nurse called me that Monday in February, her voice soft and urgent. When she said, "Evelyn, I think you should come now," I knew. I emailed Barrett within the hour. My mother is in her final hours. I'll be out Tuesday through Thursday. I've already briefed Melanie and delegated client coverage. All project docs are updated and synced. Evelyn. 3 hours later, he replied. Understood. Please ensure Melanie CCs you on all deliverables. That was it. No condolences. No support. Just task management. Still, I told myself it's fine. You're almost through it. Just get through this week. But nothing prepares you for the moment your mother exhales and doesn't breathe back in. Nothing prepares you for the stillness that follows, or the silence in your chest that somehow weighs more than any sound. The funeral was small. Just me, some distant cousins, and her friend Florence from the library who brought a paper bouquet she'd made by hand. My mother hated lilies, so I buried her with daisies. She would have smiled at that. I didn't cry much at the funeral. I felt numb, like I'd been wrapped in wool and dipped in concrete. But the moment I stepped back into the Calder and Knox building that Friday, the grief hit me like a moving train. It wasn't anything anyone said. It was the indifference. Barrett walked by me in the kitchen, pouring his third black coffee, and said, "Morning," like I'd just gotten back from jury duty. Melanie asked if I could review a proposal by noon. No one asked how I was. No one said, "I heard about your mom." I sat down, opened my laptop, and found the email. Subject: Employment Status Update. I thought maybe it was a payroll thing. A benefits rollover. I even sipped my tea. Then I saw the words. Following leadership review, Calder and Knox has chosen to terminate your employment, effective immediately. We require individuals who prioritize company goals with unwavering dedication. Unwavering Dedication. I read it twice. Then again. I couldn't feel my hands. Just a weird buzzing in my ears. And then, a strange calm settled over me. The same kind I'd felt when I signed the hospice papers. Like something was closing. I didn't go to Barrett's office. I didn't ask HR for an explanation. I knew better. I just picked up the little ceramic tray with the photos on my desk, me and Mom on the coast, me and my daughter Liza at Crater Lake, and put them in my bag. I dropped my access badge in the drawer. And I walked out. No drama. No tears. Just silence. But even as the elevator doors closed behind me, I remember thinking, "You've made a mistake, Barrett. I was the glue. And without me, you're going to fall apart." For a few days it was quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe that was the end of it. The job, the company, that chapter of my life. Like a door slamming shut in a long, empty hallway. I wasn't ready to think about what was next. I wasn't applying anywhere. I wasn't updating my resume. I was waking up late, making real breakfasts for the first time in months. Eggs and toast instead of dry granola bars eaten behind the wheel. I took walks. Real ones, the kind where you feel your feet on the ground and notice things like light in the trees, or how your breath fogs up in the morning chill. I was grieving. Slowly. Privately. And for once, no one was rushing me. I figured they'd replace me already. Calder and Knox was a machine. Faceless, stainless, always moving. People left all the time. They just got swallowed up and replaced. But on the 7th day after I left, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. Area code 312, Chicago. I hesitated, then answered. "Hi Evelyn, it's Cal Rutledge from Shoreline Manufacturing." My stomach flipped. Cal was one of my longest-standing clients, a gruff, sharp-edged Midwesterner who liked short calls, clean decks, and no bullshit. I'd earned his trust over 3 years, saved his ass during a logistics collapse in 2021, and got him a 16% cost reduction last year through a new vendor pipeline I dug up over Christmas break. "We just got your out of office," he said. "You gone for good?" There was no small talk. Just that question blunt as a baseball bat. I cleared my throat. "Yeah. I'm no longer with Calder and Knox." There was a long pause. I could hear him typing something. Then he muttered, "Jesus Christ. They didn't even tell us. No handoff, nothing. Just passed us to some kid who doesn't know the difference between net margin and net revenue." I said nothing. I didn't want to be unprofessional. But he kept going. "They screw you over?" he asked. I almost laughed. But it came out flat. "They fired me 3 days after my mother's funeral." Dead silence. "You're shitting me." "Nope." He let out a low whistle. "They're idiots." And then, softly, "You ever go out on your own, you give me a call." I said thank you, and we hung up. I didn't think much of it. Just one person, one call. But it was only the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, the calls trickled in. Then poured. Kayla from Hensley Foods. Nico from Brookwater Logistics. Daria Rothman, VP of a tech startup I helped scale from seed funding to Series C. Every single one of them asked the same thing. What the hell happened? Why didn't they tell us? Can we still work with you somehow? Apparently, Calder and Knox hadn't said a word. No email, no announcement. Just shuffled my accounts to junior reps who weren't ready. Who didn't know the backstory, the pain points, the nuance. These weren't just clients. They were relationships I'd nurtured for years. I knew their kids' names, their launch dates, their fiscal quarters. I'd stayed up past midnight helping them polish investor decks and risk memos. And now they were being handled by 26-year-olds with LinkedIn buzzwords and no skin in the game. Then came the first drop. Sequoia Thermal, the one I'd saved last quarter, formally pulled their retainer. It wasn't a rumor. I saw it posted on LinkedIn by their VP of Ops. "We've ended our relationship with Calder and Knox. We thank them for past contributions but are moving in a different direction." I screenshotted it. Saved it. Then came the next one. And the next. By the 3rd week, I had 6 messages from current CNK clients telling me, either quietly or bluntly, that they were suspending contracts, going on hold, or transferring elsewhere. The whole structure was shifting. like pulling out support beams from the inside. And through it all, I said nothing. I didn't tweet, didn't post, didn't email Barrett or HR or anyone with a told you so. Because I didn't need to. They were feeling it. The silence I left behind was louder than any revenge speech ever could be. I started getting messages from inside too. One from Melanie, the one who covered for me. "I'm sorry, Evelyn. I didn't know they'd do that to you. Everyone's stretched thin, and clients are furious. I've been in meetings till 9 p.m. all week." Another from Simon in sales. "Just wanted to say you were the best we had. Things are breaking. Fast. Hope you're okay." I appreciated the honesty. But I didn't reply. Not yet. Because somewhere in that quiet space between grief and rage, something new was forming. Not just pain. Not just revenge. But clarity. And I knew exactly what I was going to do next. They thought I would disappear. Fold into grief like wet paper. Float away quietly, like a balloon slipped from a child's hand, fading until I was just a thud in someone's memory. But grief doesn't erase you. It reveals you. It strips everything down. The titles, the pleasantries, the false allegiances, until all that's left is the steel in your spine and the truth in your chest. And I was finally seeing myself clearly. I spent the 4th week after the firing the way most people spend a year trying to find themselves. Not at a desk. Not in a therapist's chair. But at my mother's dining table. The one with the chipped corner and the old lace runner she never replaced. I sat there with her old yellow legal pads, scribbling into them like some unhinged lawyer on the edge of an epiphany. I wrote down everything I knew. Client names. Their weak points. Their dreams. What made them stay. What made them leave. Every tool Calder and Knox had used to manipulate loyalty. Every blind spot they couldn't see because they were too busy sipping $14 coffees and congratulating themselves on half-baked strategy decks. The more I wrote, the more I remembered who I really was. Not Evelyn Parrish, employee number 4473. Not the quiet one who fixed things behind the scenes. I was the architect. I'd been building something all along, only it had never really belonged to Calder and Knox. It was mine. I was the one clients trusted when everything else was on fire. I was the voice they returned to, the anchor. And when they fired me, they didn't just lose an employee. They severed a lifeline. But there was one moment that changed everything. It came wrapped in an email. Simple subject line. "Coffee? On me this time." It was from Daria Rothman, the same startup VP who'd called me 2 weeks earlier. We met at a small cafe in the Pearl District, one of those places with exposed brick walls and plants hanging from the ceiling like sleepy jungle creatures. She looked exhausted. Under eye circles, split thumbnail, blazer too sharp for a woman clearly running on fumes. We hugged briefly, the stiff, professional kind. But then she sat down and looked me dead in the eye. "I want to hire you." I blinked. "For what?" She leaned in. "I want you to consult directly for us. But not as an agency. As you. Evelyn. The one who actually knows what the hell she's doing." I tried to explain that I didn't even have an LLC yet, that I hadn't planned anything, that I wasn't. She held up a hand. "I don't care if your office is a kitchen table and your CRM is a notebook. You saved our launch twice. You gave a damn. That's what I'm paying for." She slid a business card across the table, but I didn't need to look at it. I already knew I'd say yes. Not because I needed the money, though I did. Not because it would hurt Calder and Knox, though it would. But because, in that moment, I remembered what it felt like to be chosen. Not used. Not tolerated. Chosen. I walked home in the rain that afternoon without an umbrella. I didn't care. I let it soak me, hair, coat, shoes and all. Because it felt like something holy was washing over me. Like every inch of corporate residue, every fake smile, every forced laugh in those stupid Monday morning meetings was being scrubbed away. By the time I got home, I had made up my mind. I wouldn't build a company to compete with Calder and Knox. I would build something they couldn't even imitate. Something human. Something precise. Something forged in the fire of every betrayal and still shining like glass pulled from the flame. And when I opened my inbox that night, I found 3 new emails waiting for me. One from a client I'd never met but who had heard about me from Cal Rutledge. One from Melanie again, who wrote only, "They've lost Sequoia, Brookwater, Hensley, and possibly Van Wyck. They're panicking." And one from Barrett himself. Just 3 words. "Available for call?" I stared at that email for a long, delicious minute. And then I closed my laptop. Because I was available. But not for him. The day I registered the LLC, my hands were shaking. Not out of doubt, but out of something deeper. It was like my body understood, before my mind did, that I wasn't just filing paperwork. I was breaking a generational cycle. One where women like my mother gave everything to companies, to bosses, to systems that never once gave back. And now I was building something mine. I called it Parish Insight. No fancy name. No vague Latin root. Just my name, my mother's name, and the word I'd built my career on, insight. Because that's what I did better than anyone. I saw what others missed. Not just data trends or market timing. I saw people. The fears they wouldn't name. The hesitations buried between the lines of polite emails. I could feel the moment a client was about to bolt, sometimes weeks before they even knew it themselves. I had insight. And now I had a structure to house it. It wasn't much. Just a 12-inch by 12-inch office in the back of my house, with a desk I built myself and a second-hand chair that squeaked when I leaned too far left. But it was mine. No gatekeepers. No buzzwords. No performance reviews. I started with one client, Daria Rothman and her startup. A 3-month retainer. Modest but solid. I didn't even set rates at first. Just told her, "Pay me what you think it's worth after 30 days. She sent double what I expected. With a note, "This is what real partnership feels like." The first week, I slept badly. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with phantom guilt. Did I forget a meeting? Did I miss a Slack message? Did Barrett email me back? Then I'd remember I don't work there anymore. And I'd lie back, smiling in the dark. During the day, I found myself working in short, sharp bursts, not because someone was watching, but because I was finally, fully engaged. Every project mattered. Every conversation had weight. There was no pretending. No padding. No wasting hours to look busy. I was building something with soul, and you can't fake that. But the fear didn't go away. It sat in the corner like a patient animal. Watching. Waiting. Whispering. What if this fails? What if they stop calling? What if you made a mistake? I'd hear those voices while stirring oatmeal or brushing my teeth. The ones they don't warn you about in business school. The ones that come when you're not chasing someone else's dream, but carving your own from raw stone. And then, one morning, I remembered something my mother once told me. I was 12, crying after I lost a spelling bee. I'd gotten all the way to the final round and misspelled bourgeois. I was humiliated. Said I wanted to disappear. She crouched down, looked me square in the eye and said, "Baby, shame is just the smoke that rises when you're burning through a version of yourself you've outgrown." I'd carried that for years without realizing it. And now the smoke was clearing. And underneath it, there was fire. Not chaos. Not anger. But directional heat. The kind that could melt fear into fuel. By the end of that month, I had 4 clients. All word of mouth. All people who'd worked with me before, or had heard, quietly, what Calder and Knox did. They didn't want to make a scene. But they were watching. And they were leaving one by one. Not with slamming doors, but with silent signatures and new invoices. I even got a call from Elliot Kwan, a VP who'd once ignored me in meetings unless I brought coffee. He said, "I hear you're consulting now. Would love to explore options." Options. I smiled. He had no idea how many options I had now. And then came the message that froze me mid-bite at lunch. A simple calendar invite. From Barrett Calloway. Subject, catch up? Location, your call. I stared at it for a long moment. The audacity. Like we were old friends grabbing coffee. Like he hadn't thrown me into the cold the moment I became inconvenient. I didn't respond right away. I finished my sandwich. Washed the plate. Went for a walk. And halfway down Hawthorne, as the wind whipped my coat open and the sun finally cracked through the cloud cover like an overdue apology, I realized something. I didn't need to return the call, because I'd already answered it. With every client who followed me, with every invoice I sent, with every breath I took on my own terms. Barrett wanted to catch up. But I wasn't in the business of nostalgia. I was in the business of forward. 6 months passed, and not once did I miss that office on 6th and Alder. I didn't miss the recycled air, the dry emails signed off with best, the fluorescent lights that hummed like a bad memory. I didn't miss the way people said team, but meant hierarchy. I didn't miss being praised only when someone else had already taken credit. What I did miss for a while was structure. Deadlines. Momentum. The rhythm of a day mapped out by someone else's calendar. But slowly, gently, almost like returning to yourself after being underwater too long, I created a rhythm of my own. Mornings were slow. No alarms. No inbox until after breakfast. I lit a candle. Opened a window. Made coffee the way my mother used to. French press, 2 sugars, nothing fancy, but never rushed. Work came in pulses. Some days were 12 hours, deep in strategy decks and client brainstorms that left me wired with energy. Other days were quiet, reflective. I read, walked, stared out the window, and thought about nothing in particular. And yet, I was doing better than ever. Not just financially, though yes, I was making more now than I did under Calder and Knox. But emotionally, spiritually, I felt like I'd been walking in too tight shoes for years, and suddenly I could breathe through the soles of my feet again. People kept coming. Quietly. Steadily. Word spread. Not through LinkedIn campaigns or flashy branding, but through people. Real people. Whispering over coffee or calling on their drives home from work. You should talk to Evelyn. She doesn't just get the business. She gets you. She doesn't waste your time. She actually listens. It was like a pulse moving through the industry. Slow, strong, unstoppable. By the end of the 6th month, Parish Insight had grown into something I could no longer carry alone. I hired Jordan, the same junior analyst I once mentored back at Calder and Knox. He'd quit a month after I left. Said the place didn't feel right anymore. He told me once over lunch. When you left, it was like the gravity shifted. People didn't say it out loud, but you were the culture. I didn't reply, just nodded. Because some truths don't need to be spoken twice. One day in late September, I saw an article scroll past my feed. Major shakeup at Calder and Knox. Key accounts exit amid internal restructure. No names. Just vague language, PR polish. But I could read between the lines. They were bleeding. They had tried to replace connection with process. People with templates. And clients had felt the difference. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't gloat. I just smiled the kind of quiet, unshakable smile that comes when you know, finally know, that you were never the problem. You were the glue. I visit my mother's grave every Sunday. Not out of obligation, but out of rhythm. I bring daisies. Always daisies. She hated lilies, said they smelled like funerals pretending to be flowers. I sit on the little bench under the sycamore trees, and I tell her what's new. That Liza's thriving in her art school. That I turned down a $300,000 buyout offer because I'd rather build slow and write than fast and hollow. That I'm happy. Really, truly at peace. And that I did it my way. Sometimes I swear I can feel her next to me, not as a ghost, but as a weight on the wind. Solid. Warm. Proud. The world didn't end when they fired me. But something did die. The version of me that made herself small for other people's comfort. The version that over-explained, overperformed, over-apologized. She's gone now. What's left is someone whole. Someone free. Someone whose loyalty, to herself, to truth, to people who earn it, is unshakable. You know, people still ask me, what finally made you leave? And I tell them, they didn't fire me. They freed me. They just didn't realize who they were setting loose.